Hi, my name's Sheena and I'd like to share with you my faith story. Early in the morning on September 27th, 2017, I woke up not feeling well. I was feeling hot, dizzy, and uncomfortable. I woke my husband up and I told him to call 911. And he thought, well, I can just drive you. And I was like, nope, you better call the ambulance. So when the ambulance arrived at my house, they put me in and they took me to the doctor. My husband waited for my mom to get to my house to watch my boys. When my husband arrived at the hospital, the doctor that was treating me told my husband how serious he thought it was and that they were going to transfer me to Sioux Falls in a plane due to the fog that night. I think my husband was in total shock from thinking I had something similar to the flu to hearing I may not make it. He was told I had SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. It's an uncommon emergency condition that occurs when a tear forms in a blood vessel in the heart. When I arrived in Sioux Falls, I wasn't there for very long, and my heart stopped. They gave me CPR for 47 minutes before it started again. Then they cut my chest open to see what was going on. They helped save my life, but they also knew in that short time, that I was going to need more care. The doctor had told my husband in his 30 years he had seen this one other time, and that person didn't make it. I was still fighting. So they had called the U of M in the cities and talked to my doctor. They then decided to transfer me. So into another plane I went. This time it was a plane from the cities with doctors from the cities as well. They came to Sioux Falls and they got me. This was all within like 12 hours of me getting to Sioux Falls. Once I arrived in the cities, 1 trillion tests were done. They tried to close my chest, but they couldn't because it was so enlarged. So they finally, it was about a week later, they decided, they talked to my husband and they decided to put an LVAD, which is a left ventricular assistive device, inside me. And it would help my heart, it would help pump the left side of my heart. After a couple more weeks, I slowly started to wake up. I was full of tubes and had a bag on the right side of me. I started to ask a ton of questions. Then I was able to walk. Little by little, I did more and more. Then a rehab center, then an apartment right next to the hospital. I stayed there just until before Thanksgiving. Then, on my first drive home, I remember being scared and so excited. When we pulled into our town, I just remember feeling so lucky to be here. Then when we finally got to our house, I was so excited to see my kiddos. There were differences, that's for sure. Me showering could not happen for about 2.5 months. My mom and my husband would help me. I would sit on a shower chair. We'd wash my feet and my back, and then we'd rinse my hair. But I couldn't shower because the LVAD was, it went through my stomach and then up to my heart, and then the piece sat outside my stomach, or my body, whatever. And I had to wear it connected to my shoulder. It was still so new, and that tube that was in me couldn't get wet. I had to change it. My husband had to help me do it every day, and then we did it once a week. For quite a while, we had to do that before I could actually shower. When I was able to actually take a shower, we had to put the put the LVAD into a bag that was waterproof and zip it up, and then I had to wrap my stomach and cover the opening where the tube went in. They didn't want me to have any infections. So that meant basically no bathing, no swimming, no anything for about 2 years when I had that LVAD. It was connected to me. It went everywhere with me. I had batteries that had to be changed every 8 to 12 hours. So they had to come with me along with a spare LVAD in case mine went bad. So it was goodbye purse, hello LVAD number 1 and number 2, and the batteries. And none of these things could be plugged into a normal plug-in or charge normally or whatever. They all had their own special little device. And like if I had to go to the hospital, I had to bring it all with. The hospital didn't even have anything that would charge the LVAD. Like I had to bring all that with me. So the battery charger thing had to come with, everything did. I was in and out of the hospital every 3 months with problems or an infection. Then one of the meds that I was on caused me to become very dizzy. It caused ototoxicity. The ototoxicity, that was horrible. I spent almost every day on the couch for months. Then I started to do exercises to try to help fix that issue, and little by little it got better. Then one day I was back in the cities for a few weeks. This time the doctors stated that I really needed a heart transplant, but honestly I was just not there yet. So we had decided to check my heart out some more. So they turned my LVAD to neutral in what they call a cath room. It's a heart cath room. Then we waited for 3 days, and I went back into the heart cath room, which is one thing that I hate, is the heart caths. They hurt. They cut my neck, and they put a tube into my heart, and they take pictures, and they do all kinds of things. They even take some of my heart out to make sure it's not rejecting when they're in there, and I can't have any meds because they have to have me awake and stuff to make sure this works and that my heart is working properly. But anyway, when I went into that cath room again, they made me like exercise, but I was laying down when I had to do all this exercising. They made me pedal on a bike, do things like that to make sure they could see how my heart was reacting without much of the use of the LVAD. Then I was sent back up to my room to wait for the results. The doctors came in with not such good news. They told me that I was going to need a transplant. So for that week, I asked tons of questions. I wrote things down every day. And then I decided to go to a transplant group. And that's where they have, at the hospital, they have once a week, they have people that have had transplants come to the hospital and just talk with each other. So I went to that meeting. It was an hour long, and it was, it just did something to me, because the next day I decided to get a heart, and I signed the list. It was my husband's birthday. I remember it was 10:30 at night, and I signed the papers for a heart transplant. After that, the next day, it was a Saturday, my blood levels returned to normal, so I was able to leave. So I went home, and I was at home for about 14 days. And I went to Slayton, and I was in Slayton doing some stuff, and my backup alarm on my car started to go off when I was driving down the road. And I was like, what the heck? So I went to the stop sign, and I pulled over, and I got out, and I looked, and there was nothing back there. And then my phone started to ring, so I answered the phone, and it was my doctor. And she said that they had a heart. And I thought that was crazy. I started telling her about my car. She had to have thought I was nuts. But she just kind of chuckled, and she had said that I needed to get home and that they would have me come or fly there, because they had it all set up that I would just take a plane to the cities when they had a heart available. But I didn't expect it to be 14 days. But that's what it was. And so I prayed, and I cried, and then I got in my car and I drove home. I don't remember much about the drive home, but I drove home. I got home, and my husband was going crazy. He was running around our house, packing things, doing whatever. I swear he was more nervous than I was. And the weird part was I had just went to the airport the day before. I had got the call. I went to the airport, and I talked to them about me having to take a flight and what was going to happen, and they told me things and where I could park, stuff like that. And so I just thought it was crazy. All this stuff was happening, and it was so fast. Um, I visited with my kids about everything, and I waited for the call back from the hospital to tell me when I needed to leave. I kept waiting and waiting, and I swear 10 minutes seemed like 4 hours. It was just forever the whole time waiting for them. So I finally called them to ask them what I needed to do, and they told me that the heart was flying to the cities. And so they told me that I could drive, which I was glad that I didn't have to fly. So me and my husband, I said goodbye to the kids, and we left. We went up to the cities. My brother and sister weren't far behind us. Once I was up there, I had to go through a ton of tests and labs before the doctor came in. Everything was going so fast. I mean, it was just 14 days earlier that I signed the papers for this. When I went down for surgery, I kissed my husband. And in the room I went, they transferred me to a table, and I remember asking where to put my LVAD. And they told me that I could just put it on my lap. So I did. And then I was out. I woke up the next day in the ICU. I remember seeing this clock. That's what I was staring at, basically. And I had all these tubes coming out and IVs in me and in my neck and everything. And I had this huge machine off to the side that had a million meds going in me. And I woke up and I couldn't talk because I had tubes in my mouth. So they gave me a pen and a paper, and I was drawing things, writing things. It was, I had lots to say that day. I did for quite a while. I was in the ICU for 2 days, and then they transferred me back to the cardiac floor. I worked again on getting stronger and doing more. My husband had brought the kids up to visit, and some friends of mine came to visit as well. I would pray every day for the person whom graciously gave me their heart. Then it wasn't long after the first basic week, and my labs, they started to kind of change. They started doing some funny things, going high, and that can happen, but my doctors really started wondering why. So they started to take a bunch more tests, and then they found out in a CT scan that part of the LVAD that ran inside me that was running my heart was left inside me. So back down to surgery I went, and they took it out. And I was there for about another few days, whatever, and then I was discharged, and I had to go stay in a hotel because I could only be like 30 minutes from the hospital. I had to stay in that hotel for about 3 weeks before I could go home. But it was really exciting, that drive with no LVAD. I never missed it. I never did. I never woke up and thought, oh gosh, I have to have the LVAD. I never did when it was gone. It was the greatest thing ever to not have that. I've had many casts, right heart casts, and appointments. I had them in the beginning. I had one a week, and then I had every other week, and then I had one a month, and now I'm on every 2 months, which the heart casts I don't love, remember. They hurt, and they're just not very fun, but I've had to do them often. I've counted like 23 of them that I can remember, but I don't know how many I had when I don't remember. I had another surgery actually this after Christmas. I went in because I had fluid around my heart, and it was getting to be too much fluid, so they wanted to remove that. So I had to go back in to surgery again. They got the fluid out, and when I went back this last time, there was still fluid. So I don't know what they're going to do. They'll look this next time I go to see if it's out or why it didn't go out of the window that they put in my heart. But my 1 year will happen in June. And honestly, I couldn't be more grateful to all the people who prayed for me, who hugged me, who gave donations, who helped me, the doctors, the nurses, the fire department, the ambulance, the flight crews, the aides, the pastors, and all of you who took a second of your time to pray. It's crazy, you know. I've heard from my neighbors and everybody that they were visiting their kids, and they went to the church with their kids, and they heard their pastor talking, and they were saying prayers, and they said my name, and my neighbors were like, "What? Weird! Wow!" And that was in a town where people that I know had lived, and they had said stuff to their church, and I want to just thank everybody for praying and doing the things that they did to help me and my family get through this. It's been a lot, but thank you. Thanks, really.